Here in Houston, Texas, in my hotel room, so I apologize for that. We're going to go into some of our newer drugs and some of the issues that we're seeing in the future. We're going to talk about what's happening with everybody talk about artificial intelligence and how I believe artificial intelligence is going to play a key role in the manufacturing of narcotics in the future, where these amateur chemists are going to be able to identify new ways using over-the-counter drugs or chemicals to make narcotics. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we have now and what we're going to. And I'll start it off as you all know, um, uh, what we see today. A lot of these drugs are not new. A lot of these drugs are drugs that we have seen in the past, and that chemists in clandestine manufacturing facilities are going through all these old books, and they're looking at the former patents from a lot of these pharmaceutical companies. And from there, they're developing some of these drugs that were developed in the past. Examples like our fentanyl. Fentanyl in 1962 was discovered and manufactured. In 2018, we had 1,920 analogs of fentanyl. In 2020, we had 3,456 analogs. And here we are in 2023, but I'm going to use a 2022 stat of 5,280 possible analogs. So the development of the fentanyl and how it is expanded with the newer analogs is huge. This is something that we are going to see with other drugs as it proceeds through and in the future. The thing with fentanyl is that and why it's so great it's that the toxicity of the fentanyl. The fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more greater than morphine. So it's a drug of demand. People want it because you don't need as much of it for people to get high. And as we are aware, fentanyl has become a huge problem for us. Fentanyl is a drug that has created a large amount of overdoses, a large amount of people have become addicted to it, and it is something from there has expanded into other drugs. Some of the newer drugs that we're seeing, some of the U drugs, other opioids, some of the MT45s, some of the benzes, some of the other the benzomenazine opioids, and some non-fentanyl derivatives of these drugs are popping up. Some of the things we're seeing are the trank dopes, which is a large concern for us as we're seeing out there on the street. Those are some of the zombie drugs. Like if you're talking in Philadelphia, you hear about Kensington, you see people who are leaned over on the side of the road. They're not really moving. These are animal sedatives mixed with fentanyl. They're used to bulk up the fentanyl, or they're used so you don't have to use as much fentanyl they're putting in there. Some of these, when they're injected, causes infections or causes issues in the skin. Xylazine is clearly not an opioid. 90% of all fentanyl samples in Philadelphia itself contain xylazine. If any of you guys listened to the presentation of the Republican debate, they used Philadelphia, Kensington as an example of where the big problem is. Narcan does not work with xylazine. However, it's important to know that it will work on the other drugs that are mixed with the xylazine. So again, when we have someone who's suspected of xylazine use, we still should administer the Narcan, because the Narcan is more than likely going to reverse the opioid effects of the other drugs that are in there. Xylazine is a drug used by the veterinary medicine. It's all here on the screen in front of you. It illicit use, just like with ketamine. It's been taken, it's been used in the human ingestion, something that not recommended, but it's something that is being done. When using xylazine as a cutting agent in heroin, it increases the amount of heroin that you got, it increases the amount of profit you have, and you can further cut it using the fentanyl. Based on laboratory analysis, more fentanyl is being cut with xylazine. So I know on the street, I am seeing xylazine with our fentanyl on a regular basis. When you look at Ohio, they're seeing it out there too. It is a newer drug of the future that is definitely not going to go anywhere. We're definitely going to see it in the street. When you look at the abuse of it, it's added to all the different opioids. It lengthens the euphoric effect that you have. Fentanyl is pretty quick. That Xylazine adds a little bit to the high. In 2022, Xylazine was being detected in 11% of all fentanyl-related overdoses. In Maryland, Xylazine overdoses rose 19%. In Connecticut, it rose 10%. And some of the toxic effects that you see is blurred vision, disorientation, drowsiness, staggering, coma, bradycardia, and much more. I have a video that I couldn't get to play earlier, but if you look at this video or if you copy the URL, you're going to see it's a video of those that are in the effect. And I guarantee you, most of you who are on this call today have seen people who are zombied out or who are in a lethargic type of presentation. More than likely, they are going to be on a Xylazine mix. Here's what they look like on the street, leaned over. You're sitting there waiting for them to fall, but they don't. They hold their balance pretty well. But you see this on a regular basis. Again, the URL is associated to the side. Some of the difficulties that we have, as you are all aware, is the identification of fentanyl, the identification of Xylazine, the identification of some of these other synthetic drugs out there. I am a street cop. I was a narcotic guy for a very long time, firsthand when it comes to detection. When I'm out on the street or my guys are out on the street, it's very important that we're able to tell what people are using. And Mobile Detect came out with a great strip, and I'm one that I'm going to stand behind the product. It's very quick to use, very rapid deployment of it, and within a minute, I'm able to get a result of whether it's Xylazine or whether or not it's fentanyl. I have. Actually, I'm not going to say I have. Hypothetically, someone may have used these to identify fentanyl being used, snorting it. So if someone snorted it, you may have been able to take the Q-tip and swab the nose and pull back that fentanyl or Xylazine was present. And I know that you can, if you take that same Q-tip, put it in the solution, rub it up against an arm after someone injected, as long as they didn't suck out that injection, whatever they injected into them right away, you're able to identify whether Xylazine or fentanyl is present. I've been very successful in using this. I know it's been successful in those two applications that I just said. And I'm also aware that in the hospital settings, Metro West Medical Center in Framingham has used these strips in a urine dip, and they have been very successful. They're very easy to read, as most of you have seen these before. It's a little bit different from COVID. One line's going to tell you it's positive. Two lines going to tell you it's negative for the drug that you're looking for. These are great, very cheap, very quick to do, and almost every one of our officers on the street have these in their jump bags. So when we go to naloxone with Xylazine, I already told you, Xylazine is not considered an opioid, but it's often found mixed with other drugs. So again, please use that Narcan with any overdose. Make sure you breathe for them, because that's a very important factor of this itself. When we're looking at our medicines and our benzomenazine opioids, they're right here. They're synthetic opioids. The nitazines, there are specific subclass of opioids that work particularly on the opioid receptors. These are out on the street. We are seeing these. These are going to be a wave that's going to overtake us, I believe, in the near future. These were developed in the 50s as analgesic medication. In the past few years, they become designer analogs. They've been detected illicit drugs throughout the world. They're also very readily available using the dark webs, and it's considered one of the most emergent synthetic opioids known because of their high potential of abuse. Here's some more of them. They come in the pill form. They come in any liquid. They come in powder, all sorts of different forms, just like the other drugs. It's been temporarily scheduled right now. It's set to expire, I believe, in 2024, but right now it's a Scheduled 1 drug for us. Again, these itself, you can use Narcan on these. On this drug, it does work. So once again, continue to use the Narcan. Here's the temporary schedule, expiring in 2024, and this is for these drugs. So next is our club drugs. And I'm kind of flying through these slides pretty quick, and I apologize for it. And we'll have some questions and answering at the end of this. So on our club drugs itself, we have our mescaline and our 2CB. These are drugs that we're seeing in a rave situation, or we're seeing at a concert situation. These drugs are readily available. Again, these drugs are out on our street. And again, these things can be detected using various types of methods that we all have using our test strips. And then we got our DMT. Our DMT, it's a businessman ecstasy. It's a businessman drug. You could go out on a lunch break, use DMT, and within a half hour, you could be back to normal, going back to your computer and working away on it. So DMT is a very popular drug. It's actually one of the most popular drugs that CBP is actually seizing on the border. So there is a very, very high demand for this drug out here in the United States. And so bark, a lot of the bark comes from Brazil. This is us seizing it in Connecticut back years and years ago. And here it is making a reemergent in our drug market for us. Then we got our cat's claws, which is our MIDIs. Those drugs themselves are another abuse. Those are some of that stuff you get over the counter. You can order some of that stuff on the dark web, readily available for us. The future, I mentioned to you guys about artificial intelligence will help with the development of illicit drugs. Some of these newer drugs we haven't even seen yet. They're out there in the books. We do have a lot of technology that's going to help us identify and find these drugs, which include the TrueNarc, which include the Apex, the 908, our Gemini. All of these are partners of Noble. As these newer drugs emerge and the drugs become available, they could be added into a library. Once we get a good solid drug, we can add it into the library of these devices, and they're going to be readily available for us on the street to identify them. It does take a little bit of time before these drugs, before they can develop a proper testing sample, but I think it's something that these devices are going to help us within the future itself. Synthetic drugs are the future of drug trafficking. Plant-based drugs such as cocaine, heroin, and marijuana require large amounts of land, a lot of issues to get it in. They have to have a climate. They have to have someone smuggle it in. They need a route somehow to do it to get it to us. They're relatively cheap. Using synthetics, they're relatively cheap to make. We can make more potent traditional drugs. And from that, this is why we're seeing this synthetic rise. Why smuggle 100 kilos of fentanyl into the United States from Colombia into Mexico and then into the United States when I could just use various chemicals and make 100 kilos of fentanyl very, very easy, very rapidly. And I'm being honest, when I tell you we're being inundated with pills, we are. Our guys, I was just with the guys from Michigan, we are not seeing bulk amounts of pills anymore. Our pills that we're seeing are fake. We are not seeing real pills. We're not seeing real Adderalls in bulk. We're not seeing real Percocets. We're not seeing real Oxys. Almost all the drugs that law enforcement are seizing right now are fake pills. And when you look at the amount of pills that are being smuggled across the border, it's a clear indication that the demand is there. And this is, again, going to be a huge problem for us in the future. It's a problem for us now. Of course, drug traffickers continue to synthesize new illicit drugs every day. The process is pretty easy. Here's where I'm concerned. The future chemists are going to be able to make illicit drugs at home with recipes developed by AI. This is definitely going to happen. It's going to change the way the transnational drug traffickers, as we know, operate. They're not going to have to make this in Mexico. These chemicals that are difficult to get in the United States, we don't need those chemicals anymore. Those chemicals are going to be made using over-the-counter type of chemicals. The cartels are already aware that they can make, instead of using aniline or other types of chemicals, they know they can use a various combination of precursors to make what they need. And that's happening already. With this artificial intelligence, I think this is going to happen domestically, and we're going to start seeing a lot more of this happen. Here are some of the other drugs. We don't even know where we're going to be in the future. These are some of the drugs that are coming through. We got Xanax, we got Flabaza, we got all sorts of different stuff. These are fake Xanaxes here. These are drugs. A lot of these drugs mimic everything else. The future is unwritten. This was provided by Cashman. The future absolutely is unwritten. We don't know where we're going to be in the future. We're going to recap just a little bit, and we're going to talk. You guys are all aware of the rainbow fentanyls. These rainbow fentanyls are hitting the street. Although it's not a new drug, it's the saturation illicit drug market is an ongoing problem. DEA came out and said, one pill will kill. Be careful. Don't use an oxycodone. Don't use a perk. Don't use a drug if you don't get it from a pharmacist. That's what DEA said. And with that, our Mexican cartels, the manufacturer of these pills, realized DEA is publicizing the abuse and the use of these pills, trying to stop people from taking them. The cartel, very successful in their marketing method, realized that these fake oxys and perks will become a target of the future of DEA, which they have. So the cartel immediately switched over and started doing these rainbow pills. I'm being honest, I don't believe these pills were manufactured, as a lot of our politicians have said, for our kids, for our use. It's a marketing tool. The rainbow pills are here. They're pills that are colored. They're well known as the type of coloring that is used in a rave environment. So when someone is looking for fentanyl, which a lot of people are, here they are, the rainbow pills, and I don't believe it is a marketing. I don't believe it is a targeting our children. I clearly believe that it's a marketing method for the cartels, and they're being very successful because it's a highly desirable pill. It's relatively new version that is designed to appeal to that rave type of group itself. The other important thing that I've got to say about the fentanyls, as I go back one, is the cartels also know if they mix fentanyl with MDMA or MDA, or they mix it with cocaine, or they mix it with heroin, it's going to cause an addiction. This is a highly addicted drug, and it's going to cause a high that someone's going to want to have. And mix it with anything, and people will come and get it. They'll want it. That's their thing. Then we got some of our ISOs. It's powerful synthetic opioid. It's 20 to 100 times more powerful than fentanyl. It's a very potent opioid drug. It's been identified in toxicology reports, overdose deaths that have occurred throughout the United States. We also have our carfentanil. Well, most people are afraid of carfentanil. It is here. It is on the street. It's 100 times more powerful than fentanyl, 10,000 more times more powerful than morphine. Like fentanyl, carfentanil is cut with substance, including drugs that are sold, heroin, cocaine, meth, all sorts of stuff. It's found in all types of forms of powder, tablets, patch, sprays, or on blotter paper. What you see in front of you is on tinfoil. A lot of times you're going to see them heating up the tinfoil and chasing out the smoke. You'll see them with the tinfoil. You'll see the straw. They'll light the bottom of the tinfoil, heat it up so it smokes, and use that straw to draw in the burning vapors that are coming off of those pills themselves, or the powder itself. Then we got Fentanyl. It's a depressant drug. It was made originally, I believe, in Russia. It looks like a dietary substance. It's actually sold as a dietary substance. You can buy it in tablet, powder, or capsules. This drug is not really regulated here right now. The FDA is attempting to regulate it, but right now it's still sold online and is readily available itself. Next one is Flakka. You guys have all heard about that. It's an addictive toxin stimulant. These are drugs, the past 5 drugs that I've said, these are drugs of 2023, 2024. These are going to make a large emergence here in the United States. It's similar to bath salts. Flakka can have both stimulative effects and cause psychotic symptoms. It comes in forms of pale or pinkish crystals, white crystals. It sometimes can be passed down. You'll see it in a liquid. It could be vaped, it could be snorted, it could be injected, it could be moved in any sort of way or injected in many different ways itself. We also have our synthetic cannabinoids. A lot of people just assume that's going to be like a marijuana. Unfortunately, this fake weed, these drugs are often much stronger than regular marijuana. They're unpredictable because they're not manufactured again the same way. They're all different. These also could appear in a liquid, in a vape pen. They could be inhaled, they could be smoked, and all different types of way they could be ingested. Again, this is very quick. I apologize. We kind of go over a little bit of our narcotics that we're seeing on the streets. To go more into depth about these drugs, we have a Drug IQ Synthetic Opioids, where we talk about all these drugs. We spend a lot more time on these. Those all could be pulled up using our training catalog with the QR code that's associated with it. And I do recommend you take a look at that, what's out there. On the next one, which is my QR code here, if you scan this, you should be able to find out a little bit about me. I am a training program manager for state, local, and now doing a little bit of tactical for Noble. We have myself with my partner, Mike Cash, we have developed a lot of different programs. I apologize, this one is short. I've been traveling on the road as much as we can. This Threat of the Month is an amazing thing that Noble has done. We're expanding more from just the drugs and the chemicals and explosives that are there. I think coming up shortly, we're going to have crypto investigation, cryptocurrency, and we're going to expand more on that. I'm going to open it up for some questions. If everybody has any questions for me, go right ahead.
Thanks, Maddie. And I will advise the easiest way to get questions asked is just shoot them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have.
Thank you, guys. As most important thing, please be safe out there. We all have a mission, and that mission is to get home, make sure our brothers and our sisters get home. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Great job, Maddie. Hey, guys, this is Nick Del Rey. I'm the Director of Training at Noble. Super proud to have resources like Maddie Gutwell available to us to help protect as we do response to these different types of drugs. Maddie, love the way you tied in artificial intelligence and what the future of that as it pertains to both drug detection and drug creation. And the fact that I wasn't aware, learning moment for me, that we all know that they say Xylazine, Narcan's not effective on the Xylazine, but we're definitely recommending that the use of Narcan, even if we suspect Xylazine. Did I got that correct, Maddie?
Absolutely. You have to remember these drugs, the Xylazines, the ISOs, they're not running by themselves most of the time. They're all mixed up with that fentanyl. Our majority of our people who are using these drugs right now are addicted to this fentanyl, or they have I don't want to use that word addiction. I'm sorry. They have a disease that draws them to this fentanyl, and they are using other drugs. Our drug dealers are mixing other drugs in there. So if Xylazine's in there and they're overdosing, you got to use that Narcan. That Narcan is going to break out that fentanyl that's on there that's binding. So it's very important that we use Narcan and continue to use Narcan. And what's also great is in the future, they are studying different things that are out there. So instead of using Narcan, there could be a combination of other reversal drugs that I'm hearing are gonna hit the market. So I think even though we're seeing some drugs that are mighty scary to us that we may not be able to revive people in the future, great scientists are making adjustments for that, and they're finding other things that will help someone who's in crisis itself. So I don't think we should make a huge deal of it. We continue plugging away like we do every day. We save thousands of people. Our numbers for our overdose deaths, they're great. Our overdoses themselves are huge. It's a lot more than we normally have, but our saves have increased thousands. So we're doing a great job. All you guys are doing a great job doing this.
Hey, Maddie, we did have one question in the chat box. I'm not sure that you know the answer, but let's give it a shot. What is the false negative percentage for the urine strips? I'm assuming that they mean using the test strips in a urine sample.
So in a urine sample or out on the street, I don't have the exact number on it for the percentages. I do know we do run into a little bit of problem if I'm using these fentanyl test strips to identify fentanyl, but I happen to run into methamphetamine. There is a large possibility that it is meth versus the fentanyl, but I think I run into that same problems a lot of times when I'm using a ramen. It'll come up as a fentanyl or it'll come up as methamphetamine. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care if, when I'm doing a strip out of the street looking to see what it is, both fentanyl and both methamphetamine for me are illegal substances. So they're going to jail with that, or I'm going to summons them in, or I'm going to do just a complaint on it. When they're lying there on the ground, I'm trying to identify what it is, and it could be methamphetamine, but it's coming up as a positive for fentanyl. I'm going to treat it as a fentanyl because that's a higher grade than what I would do on a methamphetamine, and Narcan's not going to hurt anybody. So I'm going to keep going. As a prosecution end of it, I'm not just relying on one test. I do a secondary, trying to use a different method. So if I get a positive for fentanyl, using a strip, I would then try and maybe go to the Apex, or I would go to the TrueNarc using a Sears, or I would go to the 908. I would try and get a secondary confirmation of what it is.
Thanks, Maddie. Any other questions? All right, well, if you do think of anything, as Maddie has his contact information up here, feel free to reach out to Maddie or the Noble training team. It's just training@noble.com, and we're happy to assist you. Well, thank you guys, and we will be putting this recording up on our YouTube channel. That's Noble Training YouTube. So thanks everyone for your time today.
Thanks all.
Great job, Maddie. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.